Also just a lot of psychology that goes into it, right? When you're taking a practice test at home, worst case scenario, you get a question wrong, you figure out what you did wrong, and and then you correct it on the actual test. When you're actually on test day, when you don't know how to answer a question, it can become very, very stressful because you know that everything you've been doing has been leading up to that test. And if you get a question wrong, well, I guess you could take the test again, but this is really the final moment, right? You don't want to have to take it again. Um, and these are all like very common and reasonable fears. And the unfortunate truth is that there's not really a good way around it. You can take the test at the normal time you would take a test, but it's hard to simulate the exact test environment. So the best way to prepare for the SAT is to really know what to expect. And today we're going to be focusing specifically on the math section. Fortunately, the math section, it's really just you're being sort of tested on the same like 10 or 11 key concepts just in different ways. And a lot of questions use very similar phrasing. On every exam, there are like 2 or 3 questions, which I think of sort of as I call them spike questions, which are going to look like nothing you've ever seen. And they're sort of to differentiate, the perfect scorers from the super high scorers. But for the most part, a lot of these questions are going to look very similar. And with repeated practice of the math section, you can make your score very high. And obviously, a perfect score is not necessary for pretty much anyone. Um, so one of the tools I really like to use that I'm going to be showing you today when I'm trying to prepare for the math section is called MEELA. This is the URL app.trymeela.com, and if you stick around till the end, I'll help you guys sign up for it. Um, but it's essentially a tutor, but it really takes advantage of it sort of has like think of it as an embedded version of ChatGPT into the actual tool that allows you to really enhance your understanding of basically any question, and it explains questions in a way that a human tutor could, but maybe not as effectively. And I want to show you what that looks like. So the whole point of MEELA is really to sort of gamify your test prep to make it enjoyable, but also super effective, and also to keep you coming back. So you can see we have tutor mode here, we have a daily quest mode, we have boss mode. Um, we're going to get to explore all of these. You're also welcome to do that on your own as well. Today we're going to go into tutor mode, and you'll see when I click on tutor mode, I get prompted to select the subtopics I want. And if you're not aware, the math section of the SAT has 4 main subtopics. It has algebra, which is a lot of linear equations, absolute value, stuff like that. Advanced math, which is where we get to quadratics, functions, composition, etc. Geometry and trigonometry, right? This is pretty intuitive. It's like triangles, circles, arc length, and then problem solving and data analysis, and that's where you get your statistics, mean, median, mode, range. So yeah, that's where we get all of those. Another thing to note is that you can select the difficulty level. And what a lot of people don't know is that on the test, when the people who are writing the SAT create questions for the test, they rank each difficulty. They assign it internally a score of 1 to 7, 1 being the easiest and 7 being the most difficult. Those rankings aren't public. What are public are a classification as easy, medium, or hard. So 1 to 2 relatively correspond to easy. 3, 4, and 5 are approximately medium, and 6 and 7 are approximately hard. And those for the questions that the SAT does release are public. And the great thing about MEELA is that every question you see is based on and highly centered around an actual SAT question. So you're never doing like random math stuff. You're only doing stuff that you could very, very possibly see on an actual test. So let me show you what it looks like. I'm gonna pick mix here, and let's start with is there a topic anyone wants to go over specifically? Like if you aren't really maybe let's say you're not very strong in advanced math, which if you have a topic you want to go over specifically, just tell me in the chat really quick, and we can do that one. Um, Advanced math. All right, I got one advanced math, so we'll do that. And then for now, I'm gonna say let's do a mix of difficulty, and we'll have time for the other topics too. So I'm just gonna say let's do 6 cards for now. So you'll see I click save, and suddenly we get some questions. There's a lot of cool features to note here. The first thing is you can actually see the difficulty of every question, right? Over here, we can see that it actually says the difficulty, right? So this is going to be an easy question. So hopefully this one isn't too bad. And then before we get started, there's actually a lot of other stuff that's important. We have a calculator. Desmos, just like you got on the actual SAT, see, this is the official version of Desmos, is actually embedded into MEELA, which is great. It's very convenient, and it's embedded into MEELA just like Desmos is embedded into Bluebook, the actual software you'll be taking the test on. So Desmos is here in case we need it. We have a formula sheet. This is the actual SAT formula sheet, so you will have this on the test. We also give you these. You're not going to have these on the test, but for practice and when you're trying to learn this stuff and sort of memorize this content, this is good to have. These exponent rules in particular are very useful. We also have a notepad. So when you're studying, it might be helpful to like write down questions and you can write stuff down there. You can also skip a question. This is if there's a question that you really don't know how to do, and then MEELA will have you try it again at the end. You can also get a hint. This is a cool feature. And MEELA's embedded AI will actually give you a hint on the question that's generated specifically for this question. And that's something you can't get when you're practicing on your own, right? If you're practicing on your own and you're taking a test, if you're stuck, but you want to sort of get it, you want to try your hand at it and you want to sort of improve your problem solving skills, but you have no idea where to start, you're kind of screwed, right? You don't really know what to do. But with MEELA, you can sort of help yourself learn along the way by getting a hint. And then maybe the next time you see a question like this, you won't need the hint because you'll remember how you solved it. And then finally, we have this Ask MEELA feature, which we're going to get to. And that's if you really don't understand a question, but you want it explained to you very intuitively. So let's look at this question. It says an investment account was opened with an initial value of $890. The value of the account doubled every 10 years. Which equation represents the value of the account, M of T, in dollars, T years after the account was opened? All right, so the first thing I like to do is figure out some important information. We know the initial value is 890, and we know the account is doubling every year, or is doubling every 10 years. To double a quantity, what I realize is that to double a quantity, you have to be multiplying by 2, right? So we can use process of elimination here. And if we look at the options, when T increases by 10, are we doubling by 2? No, we're actually having it by 2 every time, right? Same for B. We're dividing by 10 every time T increases by 2. What about C? 890 times 2 to the power of T over 10. Well, what's going to happen here? Every time T increases by 10, 890 is going to get multiplied by 2. And I want to show that to you on Desmos as well. If we put in the function M of T equals 890 times 2 to the T over 10, and whoops, 890, or so M of T equals 890 times 2 to the T over 10. If we zoom out, it's a pretty big function, obviously, so we have to zoom out to really see what's going on here. But you can see that this function is increasing. And like, for example, if we put M of 1, we get about 953. If we put and we're saying it doubles every 10 years. So if we put M of 11, that makes sense, right? 953 times 2 is about 19, and you can see we have the decimal, so it's not going to be exact, but you can see when 10 years pass, we could also do it like this, 890 to 10. You can see this function actually doubles every 10 years. If we do M of 20, well, what's 1780 times 2? It's 3,560. So M of 20, 3,560. So that's one way you could solve this question without knowing any math. You could literally just plug each option into Desmos and see which ones actually represent a number that's doubling every 10 years. The other thing you would have to check, obviously, is that we're told the initial value is 890. So we have to make sure that when we plug in M of 0, right, 0 represents an initial value, we get 890. And here's how we can see that the other options are wrong, right? Let's try option A. If we put 890 times 1/2 to the T over 10, we can see this function is actually decreasing, right? When T gets bigger, the amount in the account is getting smaller and smaller, which is not what we're told here. So that's how we arrive at the answer C. Now, let's say we answered this question and we still didn't know what we did. Maybe we guessed and we got lucky. Well, thankfully, we have an explain feature here. And when we click explain, MEELA is actually going to answer the question for us. But here's where it gets even cooler, right? It tells us, great job on getting the question right, of course. Choice C is correct because the value of the account doubles every 10 years, which means the initial value of 890 is multiplied by 2 for every 10-year period. What if we don't understand something here? Well, this is where it gets even cooler, right? Because we can say, I don't understand why we are multiplying by 2 every 10-year period. And MEELA actually responds to it and explains it in thorough detail, right? So this is a really helpful feature that you frankly can't find anywhere else. And it's going to help you basically be able to understand any SAT question, which is super powerful. And it's going to give you a huge boost ahead of other people who are studying for the test without using a tool like this. Okay, moving on. Let's try this question. The function f is defined by f of x equals 7x cubed. In the xy plane, the graph of y equals g of x as the result of shifting the graph y equals f of x down 2 units. Which equation defines function g? Okay, we can see this is a medium question, so it's going to be slightly harder than the last one, which makes sense. This is kind of a weird question. There are some rules we have to remember about shifting functions. That's a fairly essential subtopic of SAT math. And let's say we don't remember them. Well, we have MEELA right here who we can ask. So for example, can you remind me how you shift a function? We see that we're shifting the function down 2 units in the XY plane. Let's see what it says. When you shift a function down 2 units in the XY plane, you subtract 2 from the original function. That's all we need to know. So we have f of x and we want to shift it down 2 units. That means we're going to subtract 2 from the original function. So f of x equals 7x cubed. Well, if we subtract 2, what do we get? 7x cubed minus 2. Do any of those answers work? Yeah, actually g of x equals 7x cubed minus 2 works. And again, MEELA is very helpful here. Another way to do this is with Desmos, right? We could put our original function in, g of x equals 7x cubed. Or sorry, that's going to be f of x. Okay. And now we can try all these options to see if any of them look like that shifted down by 2. So the first option is A, g of x equals 7 halves x cubed. That doesn't look like it's moved down by 2. What about 7x to the 3 halves? Doesn't look right either. What about 7x cubed plus 2? Well, that looks like it's moved up 2 units. So it makes sense that to move it down 2 units, we're going to go minus 2. By the way, guys, if you have any questions about anything we're going over, please let me know in the chat. And I'd be happy to explain it further. And so we get this question right. Again, another cool feature here is that you can try a similar question. So let's say you didn't know how to do this question at first, but MEELA just taught you how to do the question, and now you want to try one on your own. Well, I can just click try similar. And we're actually going to be given a question that's the result of basically having MEELA generate a question that's similar, but not exactly the same as the previous thing. So this question is testing the exact same concept, but we're not able to just reuse the same answer because we still have to understand it. So now we have 4x squared, and in the xy plane, the graph of y equals g of x is the result of shifting it up 3 units. What do you guys think the answer is? I'll give you like 30 seconds. Type A, B, C, or D in the chat. C and A. Do we agree with A? Upile says B. What else do we think? I want to try and see a response from everybody. And if you don't know, tell me how you would use MEELA to help you figure out how to solve this question. Got an A and a B. All right, well, we'll remember from MEELA that to shift a function down by a certain amount of units, we subtract that number of units from the function. So it makes sense to shift it up. We're gonna add that number of units to the function. So we have 4x squared. If we want to shift it up by 3 units, it makes sense that, well, we're going to add 3 to the function. Let's make sure we understand why these other options are wrong, right? The SAT is the type of test where you don't have one answer that's better than another, but both answers could be correct. It's always the case that one answer is correct and the other 3 are completely and totally wrong. Okay, so 4x cubed minus 3. What would that represent? That would be shifting it down 3 units, right? 4x cubed plus 2, that would be shifting it up 2 units. And 4x cubed minus 2, that would be shifting it down 2 units, right? If you add to a function, you're shifting it up. If you subtract, you're shifting it down. And we could see it on Desmos too. For example, I'll give you 4x squared here. I'm just gonna make a random number A. You can see when A is positive, the greater it is, the higher up we're shifting the function. And when A is negative, we're shifting it downward. There's also shifting functions left and right, which are going to be tested on. I would recommend going over that as well. Once you get on MEELA, you can always ask MEELA what the rules are for shifting a function left and right. And if we have time to go over that at the end, we will. I want to get through a few more questions though. So let's try this one. X plus 45, the absolute value of x plus 45 equals 48. Who can remind me how to solve an absolute value equation? I'll teach you guys quickly how to do this. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the answer is two. Yeah,
The answer is two.
two.
Three, three, three. Yeah, how did you get three?
Yeah, so when you talk about absolute equation, just like regardless of negative or positive, you're going to get as it as positive. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I like what Ashim did. And first, we're told it's the positive solution to the given equation. So if we had any negative numbers here, we would use process of elimination and eliminate them right away. We could solve this absolute value equation, but actually, what Ashim did is very smart. You can actually just plug in each of these values. It's frankly faster, right? And we can instantly see if we plug in three, we get absolute value of 3 plus 45 is 48 equals 48. So that works. And we can see none of these other answers are going to work. So that's a quick question right there. Um, all right, this one, I'm going to skip some of these for now, just in the interest of time, since we're running out of time. And I want to look for one that has a lot of learning value. Um, Yeah, so this is what happens if you skip questions. At the end of tutor mode, you're going to be prompted to try the questions you skipped again. Because it's possible that you might just be skipping the question as a tactic to save time, right? Maybe you don't actually not know how to do it. You just know it's going to take you a long time, and you want to prioritize the questions that you know how to get right, because each question is worth the same amount of points. So it's worth grabbing the low-hanging fruit. So we'll be prompted to skip the questions or to do the questions we skipped at the end. Just in the interest of time, since we're running out here, I want to show you guys some other features too. Um, so yeah, again, you can customize the number of cards. Let's do a few questions on let's do one hard question just to end it. So I'm gonna pick algebra and I'm gonna say let's do a hard question. Oh, and look, we actually have another question that relates to shifting again. So the graph of y equals f of x plus 14 is shown. Which equation defines the function f? Um, I'll give you guys about a minute to try and answer this question, and then we'll go through it together. Once you have an answer, just say it in the chat. All right, we got an A.
Yeah,
Who
the answer is D. Yeah.
Cool. D. Um, Ashim, could you tell us how you got D?
All right. So if you look at the nature of the graph, you will see it is something that is kind of sloping down from the negative from positive y down to negative y. So like if you uh oh sorry a minute, I think I received something. Oh, I will say my answer is B. Sorry. Yeah, my answer is B. So it is kind of increasing down to the lowest level. So the more the value of x increases, the lesser the value of y will be.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Um, let's go through it. The first thing to notice is that all our answers are very similar, right? There's only one number changing in each of the answers. They each have negative 1/4 x, but the thing that's changing is the number afterwards, right? We have negative 12 here, we have positive 16, positive 2, and negative 14. Now, if we go to our formula sheet, we can see we're given the formula for slope intercept form. Again, you're not given this on the actual test, but while you're learning and you're in tutor mode, it's good to have this. So we can see B is the y-intercept. That's the point at which the line crosses through the vertical axis. Um, so we can see on the graph, what is our y-intercept? It's 2, right? We cross through the vertical axis when our y-intercept when our y value is 2. But we're told that the function shown is a function f of x plus 14. That means the function we're shown is the function translated up by 14 units. So when we translate this function up by 14 units, the y-intercept is 2. That means what is the original y-intercept? Well, we would have to translate it back down by 14 units, right? So our answer is going to be 2 minus 14, and obviously that's negative 12. So now what we know is that the actual y-intercept of f of x is negative 12, right? Which means we're going to get a. And I'll show you how this looks visually. F of x equals negative 1/4 x minus 12. That's what we just found f of x was, okay? And if we graph f of x plus 14, we could see the y-intercept is 2, just like we got in our graph. And actually, we could also check the x-intercept, which is where we cross through the horizontal axis. We could see they both intersect at 8. So that's how we can verify our answer is correct. Yeah, so that's sort of the gist of MEELA. I highly recommend this. I think this is a really fantastic tool for repeated learning. Again, this try similar feature is going to be very helpful, and you're not going to find something like that elsewhere, especially because it has the capability to generate questions beyond what the SAT publicly releases, but still questions that are formatted around the SAT. So I want to help you guys join this platform. The first thing is if you have any questions for me, you can contact me using my email. I'll put it in the chat right here, and I'm happy to discuss further. It's going to be teddy@trymeela.com. And then you can sign up for MEELA at this website. I'll put it in the chat, trymeela.com. And then when you're signing up, you're gonna get to start for free. And then once you're signing up permanently for the app, use this discount code Teddy20. I'm putting in the chat here for 20% off. That's going to give you 20% off your subscription. Again, you're going to get to start this for free. So I highly recommend, regardless of if you want to pay or not, start it now, see if you like it. And yeah, I hope this was helpful. We'll probably do another session like these. So keep an eye out. Feel free to email me if you have any questions. And yeah, I hope this has been helpful. If you have any last minute questions right now, feel free to also send them in the chat, and I'll be here for a minute or two longer. But I hope this was helpful for you all. And again, trymeela.com to start free today.
I think Imran asked a question.
What about reading and writing? Yes, MEELA is going to support reading and writing. That feature is in the works right now, and we'll probably have a separate webinar for that or something of the sort. So yeah, stick around for that as well. But yeah, right now start with math, and we're working hard on getting the evidence-based reading and writing part to you as well. Cool. All right. Thanks, guys. Remember Teddy20 for 20% off. Go to the link I sent in the chat and feel free to email me if you have any questions. All right. Bye-bye.